Who killed Alino Faso? I'm going to repeat that question. Who killed Alino Faso? On Wednesday, 30th July, hundreds of Burkinabe poured into the streets in Ouagadougou.
Chers révolutionnaires, frères d'Afrique et du monde entier, amis de la liberté et de la justice, il y a de cela 3 jours que nous apprenions à travers les réseaux sociaux une information bouleversante, l'assassinat brutal de notre frère, camarade de lutte et digne fils du Faso, Alain Christophe Traoré, connu sous le nom de Alino Faso, alors détenu en Côte d'Ivoire.
They were angry, rightly so, and they were sad. They marched to the Ivorian embassy in Ouagadougou, furious. Why were they going to this particular embassy? And who killed Alino Faso? The answer to that question is extremely critical for today's Africa because it speaks to an ongoing tension across the continent. There's an ongoing, extremely powerful tension that can either tear apart the continent or transform the continent. Welcome to African Awakening, the Pan-African show that is awakening Africans, not just in the motherland, but across the world, to unite and transform Africa. My name is DJ Bokali, and Africa is my superpower. Alino Faso's true names are Alain Christophe Traoré. He was living in Abidjan when he was arrested earlier this year in January. He was arrested on very flimsy charges.
Arrêté il y a environ 7 mois par les autorités ivoiriennes sous prétexte de tentatives de déstabilisation, le camarade Alain Christophe Traoré a été détenu sans jugement dans des conditions obscures.
He was arrested on very flimsy charges that did not warrant his being held right there in detention. And that says a lot about the kind of country, the kind of regime that is in charge in Côte d'Ivoire. Alino Faso has languished in cells for the last several months, and that was bad enough. But on 24th July, he was found dead in his cell, hanging. They claimed officially that it was a suicide. But no, it was not. These people demonstrating in the streets of Ouagadougou are demanding answers. And all Africans of goodwill, all Africans who truly want to birth a truly new Africa are demanding answers. The death of any African, any human, innocent human civilian is irreplaceable. It is also about why he was killed. And so today, we are going to expose that. Who killed Alino Faso? Why did they kill him? What does that mean for Pan-Africanism in Africa? What does that mean regarding neocolonialism in today's Africa? What does it mean in relation to imperialism in today's Africa? Alino Faso was a big supporter of Ibrahim Traoré. He used his large following online to educate people, to inform people about what was going on in Burkina Faso. Alino Faso was playing the role of an African who doesn't want to sit on the sidelines. And he was not just a keyboard warrior. He was in the forefront of an ideological war that is at the heart of Africa's foreign policy and domestic policy today. He was on the forefront of championing sovereignty. And part of doing that was educating the masses about what is going on in Burkina Faso. But why was that a threat to the regime in Ivory Coast? Why would they look at this youthful African simply going about his business of living out the pan-Africanism that he believed in? That's why he was even living in Ivory Coast, which neighbors Burkina Faso. Why would they arrest him on those flimsy charges and a few months down the road take out his life and blame it on suicide? Now, just a few days ago, Alassane Ouattara, the octogenarian president of Côte d'Ivoire, announced that he's going to be seeking a fourth term in office.
Mes chers compatriotes, conformément à la Constitution de la Troisième République, l'élection présidentielle se tiendra le samedi 25 octobre 2025.
He has been president since 2011. Now, the Constitution of Côte d'Ivoire barred him from running again. But he engineered the change of that constitution to remove term limits, presidential term limits, so that he can run again. And so now he has announced that he's going to be seeking the highest office in the land again. President Ouattara has a lot of answers that he needs to give, not just to the people of Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso, but the people of Africa. Any president who has to change the constitution so that he can run again has lost sight of why they're in the office in the first place. Because if you truly believe that you're there to serve the people, you understand that these people are your boss. You will not lord it over them. Yet, in changing the constitution to seek another term in office, President Ouattara has proved that he is on the forefront of the big man syndrome that has messed up Africa for all these decades. Now, to understand why Ouattara's regime would oversee a scenario like this one, where somebody dies in prison, to understand that particular context, we need to look at a broader issue. What Alino Faso was championing, why is that a big threat to a regime like Ouattara's? Why is that a big threat? You see, you need to understand something. Currently, in present-day Africa, picture a boxing ring. In the one corner are regimes like Ouattara's regime. In the other corner are Africans like Faso. Regimes like Ouattara's regime are in the red corner to symbolize the fact that they are spilling the blood of Africans. They're spilling the blood of their own citizenry. And any president who oversees a security apparatus that takes out the lives of their own people has lost it. Such a presidency becomes a rogue presidency. So in the one corner is President Ouattara and the dozens of African presidents who subscribe to that neocolonial approach of governing in Africa, who bend over backwards to make way and make room for imperialism. In the one corner is the Ouattara regime. In the other corner, Faso represents the millions and millions of Africans who are now awakening. Africans who are tired of the same old business, who are tired of the corrupt ruling elite lording it over them and exploiting them, using their names to enrich themselves, stealing their money and hiding it in the West. The millions of Africans who are tired of that are in the corner that Faso occupied so bravely and consistently over the course of his adult life. Now, understand one thing. That particular boxing match that I've just explained to you, the outcome of that match is going to determine if Africa will finally live up to its full potential, if the African superpower will finally find life in African households, in African governments, in African businesses. That tension has been playing out since the pre-independence days, and now, more than ever before, it's going to really play out because of this generation of Africans who are not just going to sit there and be used as doormats by the corrupt ruling elite and by the neo-colonialists, by the imperialists, who like partnering with this corrupt elite, ruling elite, to rip off the people. And so Faso was educating the people. He was living what he preached. He wasn't just a keyboard warrior. On top of his online work, he was a sovereignty champion. Back in the 80s, when Côte d'Ivoire was led by the country's first president, Félix Houphouët-Boigny, there was a tension between Félix Houphouët-Boigny and Thomas Sankara. There was a very big tension because Thomas Sankara represented and led the Africans who believed in their sovereignty, the Africans who believed that they could tap into their superpower, that they needn't and shouldn't rely on any foreign entity. Thomas Sankara represented that particular movement. As a matter of fact, he led it. Félix Houphouët-Boigny, on the other hand, represented the corrupt ruling elite who believed that the foreign masters had a bigger say in their governance than the people themselves. Houphouët-Boigny may have presided over what was perceived as a prosperous Côte d'Ivoire, but he also laid the foundation of Africa's presidents, African leaders, jumping to their feet when the imperialists walk into the room. He perpetuated that school of thought. He perpetuated that form of governance that relied on foreign enablers, not just politically, but also economically. Over the course of his presidency, he didn't do much to ensure that Côte d'Ivoire benefits from its cocoa, benefits from its agricultural riches. He didn't do much. He continued paying the debts that were ill-gotten from these foreign masters. He continued treating his own country as a footstep for France. Thomas Sankara, on the other hand, was completely opposed to that. He made it clear that those debts were just a form of perpetuating that neocolonialism. He made it clear that if Africans perennially spend more on paying debts than they do on healthcare, than they do on education, then Africa cannot get ahead. And so there was that tension and that clash. You all know that there were dire consequences for that. When the imperialists colluded with the corrupt ruling elite in Burkina Faso to assassinate Thomas Sankara, that same tension that led to that is the same tension that was experienced in Abidjan on 24th July, when the regime similarly assassinated this Burkinabe man. Now, it is very important for Ouattara to address this. These particular people in Burkina Faso who are convinced that this was a cold-blooded assassination, it is up to Ouattara to address that particular allegation. That tension that led to the death of Thomas Sankara, that tension that has now led to the death of Faso, that tension that led to the death of numerous Kenyan young people, when they simply voiced their displeasure and said that they no longer believed that IMF was doing right by them, that the World Bank was actually meeting their needs. When they said they no longer believed in that and opposed that punitive financial bill, some of them lost their lives. That tension that led to that loss of life has been playing out in Africa over the last several decades. It's the same tension that resulted in the assassination of the great Patrice Lumumba. Hundreds, thousands of Africans have died because of this tension between sovereignty and neocolonialism, between sovereignty and imperialism, between the people and the corrupt ruling elite. That tension is leading to a lot of loss of life, but there's hope. Now, one of the things that Faso used to do was to really articulate and amplify the cause of the volunteers who are participating in the military quest of Burkina Faso to secure their land and to defeat the jihadists. That's something very specific that he was involved in, which then begs the question, which then begs the very serious question. Are there forces out there who want Burkina Faso to remain in this perpetual state of insecurity, where the jihadists are controlling almost half the country? Are there forces out there that were scared, that were not happy about the fact that Faso was spotlighting the role of the volunteers in securing victory? We must look critically at the situation in Burkina Faso regarding the security of the country. Because as long as Burkina Faso remains at the mercy of these jihadists, it will remain difficult for Ibrahim Traoré and the government to truly bring about the transformation that they seek in this great country. Remember the war of attrition? It is the war of attrition that the imperialists used, that the imperialists have used in the past to ensure that gallant and transformative African leaders become marginalized, so much so that eventually the people's patience wears thin. And so when you have people like Faso who are trying to empower the masses, to educate the masses about the security situation, about the role of the people themselves in securing their country, clearly that seems to be something that became a big threat. Something that became a very big threat, resulting in the tragic murder of this fellow African. Now, as we conclude this episode, there was a special episode because we needed to address Faso's brutal murder. There's something that Africans are collectively saying to President Ouattara and to the people of Côte d'Ivoire. President Ouattara, you are seeking a fourth term. Here is somebody, an innocent civilian, who has died in your prisons. This happened under your watch, so you owe the people honest answers. And to the people of Côte d'Ivoire, we urge you to make this an electoral issue, because it is not just about Faso. It is not just about him. It is about your regime, a regime that can oversee the loss of life of an innocent civilian from a neighboring country in your prisons, is a regime that doesn't have your own best interests at heart. A president who would change the constitution so that he can run again, you must ask yourself the question, do you really want to live under such a regime? You have elections coming up, and I realize that a number of the main opposition figures are not even allowed to vie. So it goes back to the people. I understand that some of you find the opposition to also be compromised anyway. And I do agree that for too long, Africa has had oppositions that were also cut from the same cloth like the ruling regimes, which is why there has been change of presidents in Africa before, but nothing changed in the lives of the people. So whether your opposition is compromised or not, you must understand that the buck stops with you. The buck stops with me. The buck stops with all of us Africans, because sovereign power is vested in us. And at the end of the day, it is up to the people of Côte d'Ivoire to tell themselves that they deserve better, that this is bigger than Ouattara. This is bigger than Ouattara. This is about this amazing African country truly working for the people. Why should you have all that cocoa and not have the riches that are supposed to come with cocoa? Surely, more than 60 years after independence, the leaders of Ivory Coast the leaders of Côte d'Ivoire, 60 years after independence, must be able to ensure that no Ivorian is left behind, that the wealth of your cocoa, of your natural resources, of your marine ecosystem, the wealth of Burkina Faso must be the wealth of the people. The wealth of Côte d'Ivoire's natural resources must translate into wealth for the people of Côte d'Ivoire. And so you must answer the question, is Alassane Ouattara the person to make that happen? And to the people of Burkina Faso who rightly demonstrated, because they refused to just sit by and watch as injustice was perpetrated in the neighboring country, you cannot give up hope. Now, back to that boxing ring. Where on the one hand, in the red corner, you have the likes of Ouattara's regime, the likes of Paul Biya's regime, all the regimes in Africa that are not really working for the people, but are using the people as stepping stones. They are all in that red corner. And in the green corner, because green is symbolic of new life, green is symbolic of nature's victory that nobody can stop. In that green corner are the people of Africa, people like Alino Faso. We, in that corner, we must regroup, because nothing short of a knockout blow will truly bring transformation in our respective countries and across Africa. We can never win against these corrupt regimes if we rely on points, decisions. There must be knockout blows, and it is up to the people to decide how that looks like. I still believe that there can be ballot revolutions across Africa. The people themselves can vote in transformative leaders. And I understand that for them to do that, these electoral processes must not be compromised, must not be interfered with. So the people must speak to the integrity of electoral processes. And at a deeper, broader level, we must continue having the conversation of Afrocentric forms of governance. Remember, the Pan-African sun is rising. There is no one in this world, and there is no force on this earth that can keep it from doing so. Let us continue to awaken, to unite, and to transform Africa.